Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Joyce, and I'm head of worldwide sales of marketing for Kodak's digital solution group. And if you're like most of the population of the world, your first connotation with Kodak would be a photograph, a film, possibly Times Square, maybe even the Mad Men episode of where they were pitching, naming the classic Kodak slide carousel. But actually, Kodak is quite a player in the digital marketplace, both in the consumer and in the B2B marketplace, as well as a leader in digital and social media. And today, it's our pleasure to introduce this prestigious panel who will be sharing with us the cutting-edge creatives and how creatives impact brands and how we connect with customers. And with that, please join me in introducing Mr. Marc Young, Head of Advertising, General Manager of Microsoft Advertising. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. I thought we'd do some bios because it's an incredible panel. First, I think it's a cruel joke. I think all the account execs I've worked with in 25 years and some of the creatives have purposely put me up here with some of the best creative minds so I can actually touch them.
No, you can't.
I'm a frustrated creative at heart. But my team will tell you that I never get to name anything, I never get to talk creative concepts. I just get to risk my job once a year to push the envelope. And if I almost get fired once a year from one of your ideas, I've had a good year. So I don't quite get fired. So we're going to start with Conor. Raise your hand, Conor, because we're going to go in order. Perfect. Conor Brady, who's the Chief Creative Officer at Organic. 17 years of experience as a designer. Conor now leads the creative discipline across the Organic network. Native of Belfast, Ireland, where he's returning tonight for the 250th anniversary of Guinness. I know that's not why you're going home, but
it's true, though.
250th birthday of Guinness. It should be fun in Ireland.
It's not why I'm going back, though.
But it's a good reason.
It is, yes.
He came to New York from London, where he worked in the music industry for Universal Music Group on the Island, Decca, and Verve record labels. He also spent time at Random House, where he worked on the first 100 jackets for vintage paperbacks. But the smell of ink on paper wasn't sensory enough for Conor, so he moved into the digital space with Razorfish in London, where he worked on the Financial Times relaunch, Nokia in Stockholm, and HBO in New York. Conor came to New York for a little 6-week stint on which account? Ford, and never left, but he promises he has a green card. At Organic, he's helped add Intel, P&G, Kimberly-Clark to their client list. He works across all 4 of their offices. But he almost didn't join us up here. He almost became a professional cyclist. But it was a winter in Belgium that just kind of talked you out of it.
Yeah, it was
that would talk me out of a lot of stuff, I think. Good,
yeah.
Perfect. He brings his bike to Cannes with him, though, every year, and I've promised him a locker at our beach club at Cannes, so you're welcome to it. And
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll find someone to ride with you. Welcome, Conor.
Thank you.
To his left, your right, is Sophie Kelly. This is really difficult. Sophie is a champion of culture movements. She's a partner at Strawberry Frog, and my partner on the panel is the other non-creative, but we'll have fun with these creative guys. She's a champion of cultural movements, ideas, strategy, and communication for the likes of P&G, PepsiCo, where she just was this week, BlackBerry, and Morgan Stanley. Sophie helps lead the blossoming Strawberry Frog agency of agile frogs, and I'll have to figure out what that means, but I love it. With unfettered energy and fragrant ideas. I also like fragrant ideas. Only creative people come up with these bios. I love it. You sure you're not a creative person? Sophie joined Strawberry Frog as a partner to bring Strawberry Frog brand and cultural movements DNA to some of America's most respected corporations, challenging the models and systems of the past with innovative solutions, agility, and strategic and creative excellence. So welcome to have you. Sophie sits on the management board, leading its push for creativity, accountability, and innovation. Before joining Strawberry Frog, she held the position of Executive Management Director of Diageo brands at JWT, where she was responsible for the most successful brands on their agency's portfolio. Before JWT, she oversaw the management of brands from P&G, Kellogg, Reebok, Unilever, and Nestle. Welcome. To her left, you're right again, Marc Lucas. Marc is the Executive Creative Director for the Northeast region of Razorfish, one of the world's largest interactive agencies. In his role, he directs all web development and advertising creative, including design and copywriting, out of the agency's Manhattan flagship office. Prior to joining Razorfish in 2008, Marc was Vice President, Creative Director at SS&K in New York, where he created innovative, award-winning, idea-centric advertising for clients fed by design, public relations, and popular culture. His international experience includes stints as Executive Creative Director, Darcy Hong Kong, Ogilvy Manila, and Marc's clients include Partnership for Drug-Free America, the Travel Channel, Unilever, and Weston, for which he picked up a People's Choice OMA Award. Congratulations, and welcome, Marc.
Very proud of you.
Moving on down the line, one of the innovators and pioneers of this lovely digital space we're in, Benjamin Palmer. Benjamin serves as the co-founder and CEO of the Barbarian Group. And over the 6 short years since the company's founding, Benjamin has become one of the most respected voices in the world of interactive and digital advertising. He's actually named one of Creative Magazine's 50 top creatives, and one of the few that was a digital pioneer in that list. Benjamin leads the creative group at the Barbarian Group, overseeing creative output, as well as the company's overall direction and vision. And he's also integral to the spirit and spunk of the company, providing leadership since its inception. Benjamin has been intimately involved with the bulk of the company's digital work since its founding. In his capacity as CEO, Benjamin has led the Barbarian Group to its position in the industry today of unparalleled creative quality and uncanny ability to cut through the noise with consistently great and effective interactive communications. I think one of their favorite campaigns working with Crispin and Porter obviously is Subservient Chicken, one that we all know and love and we measure ourselves against if we do anything in the media space. There's too much to mention on Benjamin's list, and we're going to start with him in the Q&A anyways, so please welcome Benjamin. Last but not least, Tor Myrhen. Tor is the Chief Creative Officer of Gray in New York. He is the youngest, I am told, of any of the Chief Creative Officers of the major agencies in America. In the past few years, he has done many campaigns that have become pop culture hits. One of my favorite, of course, is the E-Trade Babies. Not only did he do the campaign, I'm told he is the voice of a few of the baby lines. We may get him to sing a little bit later if we ask really nicely. Flex his golden pipes, as it were. He did the reverse race poster before the Obama election that had worldwide buzz, was covered extensively by CNN, BBC, and hundreds of newspapers. I'm sure we've all seen it. He helped create Oprah's You Get a Car episode, which I know is one of my wife's favorites. He created the Apprentice episode that launched the Pontiac Solstice. After the show, the car sold out in 41 minutes. Unfortunately, he also created the Google Pontiac TV ads. Thanks, Tor. Could have done that with us, by the way, next time. Appreciate it. He helped GM become one of the first major advertisers on Second Life. Please welcome Tor. So it's been a long week here at Ad Week, and I think one of the sentiments has obviously been data, or data. I'm not sure. There's too many international voices up here. I'm not sure what to say. So Benjamin, you've been around 6, 7 years. What is data and the proliferation, mass amounts of data you guys get in the digital space, how has it really affected and changed creative?
I guess a lot, you know, like you can track probably too much in the digital space, and like the trick is sort of establishing what you're out to do in the first place with your clients, you know, in the beginning. Like for instance, like we do Kashi, you know, and our measure of success is not like raw traffic. It's like how many people we have that are like registered users that come back week after week and sort of interact with the site and things like that. And that was like well established in the beginning, and we have this whole platform over that. But then we're trying to do some brand building for a different client, and they just want raw traffic. They just want like, you know, 10 million people to see, you know, a piece of creative, and that's like a totally different strategy, and that like kind of burns out real fast, you know. So I don't know. It's just different all the time.
Tor, I know you just published a paper today, Ad Week. I may get it wrong. Fast, cheap, and out of control. Was I close?
Yes.
So obviously data has a lot to do with fast, cheap, and out of control, and your lovely client's desire to test, throw it out there, you know, versus our old model of focus group, and, you know, be smarter than our customers, and put out. Tell us a little bit about the paper and how data has affected what you guys do.
Well, it's I think it starts out with the obvious notion that digital has exponentially sped up what's expected by both clients and consumers. So the speed at which we as agencies have to not only think but have to execute, has increased amazingly in the last couple of years. And I think that's the fast part. The cheap part is, we're all now watching on screens this big. And so I think there was a time when we were judged by the execution probably more than the idea. We were watching on a huge screen. We all have huge screens still, but really, how often are you watching YouTube? Most of the time, tiny little screen, you're watching on your phone. So I think that the price of execution has gone down. This is, and this is kind of freaking everybody out. Obviously, it's affecting agencies and profits. It's crushing the production community.
It's not good either, is it?
I don't know. I think that the one good thing about it is
like there's so little expensive internet content, and there's so little expensive ad space online. And that's actually where we're incredibly far behind other traditional television and print and things. It's like there's like a huge lack of premiumness, and
well, the supply is infinite. And unfortunately, the supply being infinite reduces the value of it.
Well, and it's like this weird thing, brands have spent the last 10 years being like, okay, I'm just going to dip my toe in, and if my cheap experiment is a massive success, then I'm going to dive in wholeheartedly and I'll spend all my money there. But the thing is if you just kind of do the cheap little experimental version, it actually just sucks and nobody goes and sees it.
Well, it depends on the idea.
If
the idea is good, people will go see it.
No, sure.
I do actually think on the topic of data that there's a huge opportunity for us to take the data available in the online area and use it to our advantage.
Absolutely.
To support all of this, whether it's data to reframe how we use it, it's a great place to get insights on consumers' point of views, brands' point of views, influencers, experts. Why don't we turn that around, bring it back to our clients or our marketing partners? It's a great place to understand or solicit response to content we put out there, to make the argument of what kind of quality, what kind of budgets, where it should be placed. And I think we're a little behind in how we as a profession are approaching how we use data to support what we want to achieve in how we put content out there.
I think there's an angle, there's a lot of data that's inspiration that sort of kicks off, and that's where digital is really strong. You look at the Fate Eco Drive, that's data pulled from a car that was turned into something else that's not advertising but actually is a great way to communicate. Look at Nike Plus, it's data, it's personal metrics. So I think the whole idea of data is like an inspiration of personal metrics is a great thing to be in digital and in and around. And I think any data up front that can enable us to be a little bit smarter about how we market, there's no harm in that.
We're going to our clients now talking about an idea we're calling digital Darwinism, where we can, in the bad old days, and sorry to call out Millward Brown, but Millward Brown would come back 3 months later and tell you whether you succeeded or failed, and that's unacceptable in the new environment. So we're pushing an idea where you do multiple ideas and you monitor the heck out of them. Make sure that you can see what people are responding to, what they'd like to see more of, and get a little bit more reactionary and plan your reactions as well and understand, okay, if this succeeds, how does it evolve? And I think clients are responding to that.
It works, and it's a lot like software development for like Facebook or some kind of web application kind of thing. Most of the ones that are really successful start off with a small set of features or one feature, and then depending on how people interact with it, they add a thing or and it's iterative. It's called agile development, and it works really well for advertising actually. If you build something, you build a permanent sort of not a campaign that's media, but you build something and see how people interact with it, and if they gravitate towards one thing and not the other, then you spend more money on that.
But clients need to change the way they spend their marketing dollars to embrace that.
It only works if they have a long-term sort of perspective on the situation too, which is half the problem.
Right, and this goes back to the conversation, should it be cheap or what production values, what timeline, what investment, the lack of sort of planning about what you are doing, what you want to achieve, what the measures of success are a result of the discussion and debate getting stuck at that level.
Do you find then that your clients are coming to you less prepared today than they possibly would have 10 years ago? You may not have been around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Some of us are.
I didn't have any clients 10 years ago.
You know, do you,
They seem more
are the
panicked
briefs
now.
different? Are they
Well,
just coming to you going,
I mean,
I need to do something,
Very
give me an idea?
I mean, what I would say is that wasn't particularly clear on what they want to achieve, the problems they need to solve, and have an idea of the channels that they want to exist in. But I would say when it comes to online, they're not exactly sure what they're going to create there and actually how they will take their message into the online area and what role it will play all the time. So I think there is a big onus on digital interactive agencies, brand agencies, to help them plan their campaign architecture online. And within that, there will be, you know, retail components, there will be trial components, there will be brand messaging, and, you know, communication planning has got to be at the centre of what we're recommending. And I think that is where they're coming with a lack of clarity.
I don't know if it's
my view.
prepared. I think they're undereducated in the sense of it's not as defined as it used to be around typical channels. I mean, I don't think there are any typical channels anymore. And there really aren't any channels anymore. Everything's interconnected. So I think if you're coming and talking to them, you have to be prepared to talk on that level of a system rather than here's your channel, here's your funnel. I mean, nobody really thinks like that. What consumer thinks like that? So for us, what we're finding is it's coming in and actually showing some relevance around why you would do stuff as opposed to just doing it because another brand did it, I think is really important for us to do up front. So that whole idea of like marketing intelligence is important from a strategic perspective to make sure that they're spending their money the right way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them jump on the same bandwagon. If I've seen my competitor client do a Facebook page, then I need a Facebook page. Well, why is the question that we ask all of the time. And our big thing is like the consumer's our client, not you. So we're actually building it for them, not for you. So if the consumer fails, then you fail and we fail. So, you know, it sort of puts us in that position.
Yeah. I also think on the production side of it is, you know, if we can get them to think about content creation against a brand idea, whether it be from a digital agency, a brand agency, you know, in-store activation, what content are we creating to get this brand message out into the world, to our consumers, then I think we'd find a lot more efficiencies across all the disciplines if we viewed it that way, versus, you know, different partners working on different parts of the marketing plan.
And this is kind of funny, going back to the data question. A friend of mine, a guy I work with, it's just very funny. He was talking about a client, and he said that guy uses data the way a drunk uses a lamppost for support rather than illumination. And I think like that to me like sums up data.
There's gonna be a lot of tweets right now.
Yeah, it is.
No, but I mean, and he stole that from an old book, by the way. Yeah, exactly. But well, before that, it was written well before that. But it is a really, it's a really interesting way to think about data because you know what you learn along the way, and instead of just supporting your cause and supporting what your message and what you're trying to say. You know, using that data to learn and to evolve and to illuminate rather than just support, I think is a really important thing.
But I mean, there has to be a balance between it because we have a tendency to overanalyze. So I think data after the fact is, unless you do something with it, is kind of useless. I mean, so serving and chicken, if you try to analyze before you did that, was that going to be a success? Data probably would have said, no. You're insane. Right. But look at the success it was. So there's a gut emotional side of this as well, which is, you know, how do you measure that?
Right.
Well, and the thing is you can measure as you go, you know, and sort of, but it only becomes valuable if your process of creating the marketing is to sort of adjust on the fly in reaction to that. Because it's like if you just do something that's static, even if it's interactive, if it's like. It's cooked, it's done, we're going to buy the ads and like that we made months ago, and then you can't like sort of adjust if it's not working or if something's working really well, except to spend more or less money.
So you're asking your customers to budget that way? I mean, do you ask?
We
them to
did.
do
Okay,
that?
yeah, we did. When we started, like our biggest long-term example is our Kashi sort of thing. So the first year of work that we did, we budgeted for like, you know, 6 or 8 months of development time, but we actually launched sort of a third of the way into that, and then the rest of the development time was to like kind of adjust as we went, you know. And so you budget for like you budget for your full, you know, development cycle, but like if you move the launch earlier, instead of just assuming that your 9 months worth of work is going to be totally perfect and everyone's going to love it.
Which it will.
It always is.
We're not smarter than our customers, really?
Yeah.
Well, the hard thing is that the package good conglomerates, the big ones out there, are struggling with how do you mete out that money. Because if you don't spend it in the right amount of time, they're going to take it away.
Yes.
So the brand manager is going, well, if I got to get it off my desk.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're saying, listen, you've got to hold on to a little bit of a war chest so you can react a little bit more and be a little bit more organic with it.
Yeah.
Staying on the client sort of piece, sort of. We'll ask the first question, then I'll probably follow it up. Do you feel in your space you get more freedom because we don't know what we're doing, or less because we're scared to death?
I'm not sure that there's a yes or no answer to that. I'm screwed either way. So.
Yeah, you are.
I think what we are seeing is the clients are coming to us, and I can't speak for the rest of the panel, saying, listen, we understand that traditional media is falling apart, and I can't spend money on TV and print the way I did in the past and achieve the same results. So we need to really think about a world where digital lives at the center of everything, and TV and print and events and all PR all live in that ecosystem. But give me a strategy for this brand, and we're doing this for about 4 different brands. Give me a strategy where digital is at the core, and we're talking mostly to teens, 20-something consumers, where they're walking straight past the TV, turning on a computer, and they're doing 12 things at once, and they're playing around with, and they've got the attention spans of fruit flies, so we've got to make sure we can anticipate that. And that's what our clients are asking for. They understand that something's broken, and they're looking to digital agencies to help them find a way through this sort of scary period.
I think for us, and I mean, as you know, Gray has a lot of very big multinational brands. Definitely more freedom in the digital space, without question. I mean, it's a lot easier for us to sell sort of progressive, edgy ideas that might get a lot of attention out there in the digital space, because there's just, you know, with massive brands, there's just less eyeballs on it, you know. When you're doing a television spot or you're doing a major print launch, you have, you know, 10 clients that have to approve every piece of that. When you're digitally, for a lot of our clients, there's just not as many, and they're not looking. They're not looking at it.
Is it a lesser medium in their eyes? Is it a less expensive investment?
Less expensive investment.
I think separating them in a client's mind is naive. It's like it's not either or. It's all part of one ecosystem.
No, exactly. I mean, it is, but that's not the way a lot of clients look at it.
I know, they're siloed.
Yeah.
Lately, we find that a lot of the clients, they actually could remove the word digital from your agency title and really wouldn't give a damn, because all they're concerned about is making a connection, and they don't care which agency does it. We haven't pitched against a digital agency in the last 6 months. So, you know, what does that say about how it's changing, but also what does it say about the client and their perception of you? We've also pitched TV ideas in the last 6 months. A year ago, we wouldn't have been doing that. So for us, it's about, we were talking about this earlier, it starts with a platform or an ecosystem or an idea at the start, and then after that, you figure out how to do it. You partner with other agencies, you work with other people to deliver on it if you haven't got the skills, and it's okay to put your hand up and say, we don't do that, but we know someone we can partner with really well and deliver it in the right way for you. So I'm finding it really interesting. It's like, you know, there's almost like open source agency now as opposed to lead agency, which I think is great. So it's, you know, it's an opportunity for digital agencies like us who for a long time were like the kids at the back of the table. Now we're at the table. Now we're kind of like getting to pick up the cutlery, which is great, you know. So
we just need to
watch you don't cut yourself. Yeah.
We need to get more comfortable with being at that table. I think one of the things that digital agencies lack that traditional agencies have is strong relationships, strong strategic thinking, and software companies and digital agencies are used to being more project based. You go in, you do the job, and you get out. That's got to evolve, and I think all of us in this panel are probably seeing that change in the way we work. And the fact
well,
that
the medium's become a lot more permanent though too. Like 5 years ago, years ago, it was a nearly impossible sell to be like, give us a budget so big that we can do something that's going to last for 10 years, and people would be like, what, you know? Like,
I mean, we were talking about that earlier. It's just in respect to what you asked the question, you know, what do you say clients ask for? Right. I think that the conversation, and you just talked about 10 people to approve a TV ad. I think that depends on what agency the client is talking to, because the conversation and the focus will be very different, what door they're walking into and what they think your expertise is. But I'm seeing our expertise cross across a whole lot of things. I also think that, you know, your point about briefs, you wouldn't have had digital sitting there with the core component of TV, print, like 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now more briefs are coming in going, okay, I need TV because my sales force or distribution channels are driven by knowing it's there. What am I doing in digital and what's happening in store? Where's the experience? So, but what you're not seeing is an allocation of media funds really driving at how you can plan out that digital space. And I think that's where we need to get to, is more planning that really adds a bit of science and data to the fact that these are the kind of budgets you should be allocating so you can properly exploit your brand idea there.
It's clear you guys are all getting a bigger percentage of the budget.
Yeah, definitely.
But in a world where, we're still, call it what you want, working, unworking, production, media, earned, paid, take your pick of terms, there still are those budgets, and a lot of the work you do around experiences, websites, take your pick of terms, what do you call it? I mean, when you get 20 million hits, Kashi's got millions of people that come back every month, I've paid for the production, but I'm not paying media, but I'm getting a better value maybe than if I had paid media. I mean,
well, and it's like there is some kind of, I don't know what the math is, but there's a certain, but like if you doubled your production budget and like cut your media budget in half, like you probably you can save a ton of money and probably get like the same amount of traffic because people will be attracted to the work that you did because it's better because you spent more time on it, but somewhere in there, like there's like the old math of your production budget versus, for creative, for television versus the media budget. Like I don't think
But that's where the whole idea of content creation and distributing that in the right places, and then earned versus paid media. We need to do some work on proving out that model. I think, there are lots of different ways to do it, but, proving to people that gone are the days of evaluating the effectiveness of a campaign by looking at the burst, the reach and frequency, and what has happened to brand health and sales in a 4-week period or a 6-week period. I mean, to your point, you can adjust your messaging as you go. You can get feedback daily. Mm-hmm. That kind of return response to what you're putting into the market has got to be worth more.
Well, and maybe there's a problem too when your digital work is on the same schedule as like traditional media campaigns, mm-hmm. because I think that probably like boxes you in a way that doesn't let you take advantage of what the internet's really good at.
Let's look at the other side of data. We all know we get real-time feedback, whether we're watching Twitter or ComScore, take your pick of any syndicated or non-syndicated research. If you guys had campaigns, you're all creatives, you all know what you're doing. If you had campaigns where you kind of knew if it had a chance, it would have succeeded, but it got killed in a hurry because early data, that hourly data, that minute data, that second data, early sentiment, take your pick, was such that the campaign didn't get a chance to grow, didn't get a chance to evolve?
I don't know if there's a specific example, but I think that's the danger in overanalyzing something. Sometimes things take a little bit of time to stick, and word of mouth is obviously a big component of what we do, specifically within digital, if you call it Twitter, word of mouth. Yeah. But so how do you sort of keep an eye on that and sort of not have a client go, I didn't get the results in the first week that I was hoping? Yeah. But you have to set that expectation up front. If you don't set it up front before you go in and start measuring, you haven't decided what you're going to measure or what the success is going to be, then yeah, you're doomed to fail, I think.
We're in a world where the customers want new ideas. We talked about it a little bit backstage. You've been fortunate with E-Trade that the babies have lasted, what, 2.5 years now? Is that about right? Kashi's 3+ years, I think, on the website. But the reality is we're in such a hurry to be fast, cheap, and out of control that we're asking you guys for 10, 20, 30 times the ideas that we probably asked for 10 years ago. How do you guys do it? How do you find
silence?
Seriously, how do you,
I don't know.
Outside of Red Bull
I think that's the attraction of digital in a way. It's the fact that you can move quicker than maybe some of the other mediums, and I think it's also just the accessibility to feedback, whether it's good or bad, I think is a good thing. I think it's a really positive challenge to be able to do that, rather than a sort of, oh my God, I got to come up with another idea next week. I think it's a really interesting way to work.
I think the speed of it is so much of it right now. I mean, that's what that's what the consumer expect. That's what people expect. You know, I mean, if you're getting your news and everything in real time, then you better get your marketing messages in real time. You know, and so it's.
Is it a different type? Is it a different type of creative though?
I don't know.
No fragile ego creative anymore.
I think
you're gonna get bashed.
We sort of treat the whole company like our creative department, and we have and I have multiple offices, but we all work together. So we have this sort of web software that we made. It's like a company-wide notebook sort of thing, and so whenever we have a new project, we sort of ask everyone what they think, and you know, and so you get a whole lot of ideas really fast, and like I think if we're all building stuff with the internet as our audience, you know, instead of like the client as our audience, then you just need to like have a sort of bunch of people that really understand the internet to like have good ideas.
We work in exactly the same way. The ideas don't come from the creative group; they come from the whole office.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen some great ideas come from people in the front desk. Yeah. Like you bring it, everybody's welcome in a brainstorm. There's no like exclusion. It's definitely a sort of environment of sort of collaboration, and I think we would fail if we didn't. I think our best ideas always come out of that. I think that's the difference in a digital agency. Let's face it, we've all been beaten up by traditional agencies for the last decade. So now it's a case of we're actually been able to sort of flex our muscles a little bit and join in with them sometimes, and sometimes work against them, depending on who you're working with.
I worked on both sides of that fence, and I think that even in a traditional agency, a good creative team is generating 100, 200 ideas and reducing it down to one. Now all we're doing is reducing it down to 10.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, I think.
But I think it's an interesting point, because I think that we have to be better about what is an idea versus an executional tactic against that idea. Yeah. I think we need to be more disciplined about evaluating them and guiding our marketing partners through how they evaluate what we put out there. And I also think that one of the biggest challenges, and I clearly don't do a lot of the writing, but I do contribute to the process, is that when you have got the ability to be pushing so many things out executionally against an idea, is the kind of tone that you want to hold for your brand or your program, because it's I think that is the hardest thing to hold constant, and one of the most important things to hold constant.
I think that's actually our biggest challenge. Facebook app is not an idea.
No, it's a tactic.
That's what we're finding is the battle all of the time. Is like, that's the assumption is that's the idea. Like just having it is the idea, which is, I think, completely wrong. Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't mean that great tools and technology and tactics can't be matched with fantastic creativity and be more powerful than ever before. But I think teaching people the difference between a tactic and an idea is.
And that's the interesting thing about how little things have changed. You know, I mean, it's still about the idea. You know, it's very cliche to say, but it's like it's still about the idea. You don't have anything if you don't have a big idea. If you have a big idea, you can build it. You can build things on the web. You can make television ads. You can make short films. You can do this.
Yeah.
You need the idea first. Yeah. You know, so that hasn't changed at all in the history of advertising.
Perfect. Get ready for questions. We're getting about ready to that time, but I want to ask this panel then. We've talked about tactics, so and I've asked you all before to think about some work that's not your own, or you can use your own. I don't really care, but work that's been inspiring and you think is great execution. You know, Sophie, we'll start with you. I know you gave some great examples, but
oh wow, okay. What's inspiring? I really liked the HBO Imagination Cube work that was just done. I liked it because I thought it was really true to the HBO brand, the HBO experience, and why people engage with their content. And I thought it added another dimension of the experience that you wouldn't get through any of the other touch points. So it really got my attention. I also really enjoyed the production values of it. And I know people who have spent hours engaging with it. And I think it only increases the adoration people have for that brand and their content.
And do you think it's a good example, though, of there is no premium content, or premium places to put ads, so create your own premium space?
Yeah. And
that's part of the challenge you guys face, which is if you can't find the premium experience to put your message in,
create it.
Screw it, create your own.
Yeah, and I think we talked about, we haven't talked that much about it, about innovation technology, but this is sort of innovation in communications, isn't it? It's like there's no limit to creativity in this space and how you bring new experiences to people. So I thought it was great.
Anybody else? Work that's...
I got to say, I took a lot of heart in the best job in the world out of Nitro Cummins, partly because I really don't believe there's a distinction between digital work, PR work, advertising work. It's just a really fucking great campaign.
Yeah.
And it's like, you couldn't
Anyone
do it
not
with
see it, by the way? If you haven't, go look. Best job in the world. It's
$1 million bucks to sell essentially a strip of beach the size of Florida.
Yeah.
And they've managed to use the web, use PR, use the news, the daily news feed to really drive desire to go to that place. And that was the one I pointed to when I first saw it and said, that's going to just tear through the industry and make us really think about what we do.
Won some awards last night too.
Couple, yeah.
A few.
I love the Johnny Walker film with Robert Carlyle. That sort of one piece, one cut.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what they're.
So here we go. He doesn't like it.
I don't know what they're using it for because it's not a 30-second spot. It's not. I haven't seen it in use other than on YouTube, which is.
Is it really long or something?
It's
It's like 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes.
It's one take of a guy talking about the history of Johnny Walker.
And it's it's Robert
Which is
Carlyle,
a
so
neat
it's got
film trick.
subtitles as well, which is
That's
kind of
as
fun.
Well, if you're into it, then you
Yeah.
probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's
Did you see that? I saw
It's
that
not an
90-minute movie
experience.
that was like that, like the
You'll
movie that was
probably
done in
end
one
up.
take.
Yes.
Which was,
It's a neat trick.
yeah.
I think the Eco Drive that they did with Fiat was kind of interesting. It's just a kind of out of nowhere taking something from a product and turn it into an experience and how you can change your life or change your driving, but effectively sold as impacting your life. I thought was really interesting. I think that's an interesting use of data and sort of turning something into advertising that's not advertising. I really love that idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about what you guys don't like. That'd be more fun, maybe. But
Johnny Walker film.
hate it.
Sorry, mate.
Robert Carlyle, he didn't like it.
Yeah. I like the JetBlue
Yeah.
flight pass thing where you could buy and you could buy a ticket that was like $500 and you could fly as many times as you wanted in a month and it just because I actually heard about it like very socially like all like you know a bunch of my friends were like okay we're all gonna get tickets and we'll figure out ways to like meet up in different cities and like kind of all this stuff and it really just like kind of stimulated actual sort of real life adventure you know and it's I don't know it was just really cool like it was pretty inspiring to a lot of people I think so.
I'll go completely expected, and I just think the Obama campaign crushed everything this year. I mean, not even close. I mean, I think that the scale of that thing, the way that the community got involved, you know, it was just so much content created that was not asked for. I think that's what a brand has to do, and I think it was just genius.
I think those of us that were lucky enough to get to Cannes this year, Schematics digital wall for the exhibition was pretty impressive. Watching just the gravity that it had and watching people interact with it and the things that you could do was just great to see that sort of level of interest around a piece of digital. I thought it was phenomenal. Really great.
Cool. Well, let's open it up. We got a hand already up in the.
Can I just yell it out?
You can yell it out. We'll repeat if they can't hear you.
Okay, great. Cassandra, I'm with the Advertising Research Foundation. So, is there a science to ideas, the process of idea creation? And kind of part two on that is how do you stimulate your creatives to ideate?
I'll start the conversation. I don't think there's a science to it, but there are habits that you need to cultivate to help you generate ideas. And beyond that, it's just hard work, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just add to that, you know, there are places to look, to aid and to stimulate. And I think that, you know, one of the things we try to do is consistently infuse trends and information about the culture of our consumers, things that are interesting, things that are on their mind, things that are keeping them awake at night, as well as new technology and anything we can from the world we live in to feed into fueling how we think about solving clients' problems and creating ideas that are relevant and connect with consumers. So that would be my
Yeah, I mean, we have our own kind of take on the art and science thing. We call it EQ-IQ. It's like emotion and analytics put together. So we use that as a driver for for work and how we sort of structure the work. Our inspiration a lot of the times actually doesn't come from digital. We actually find our inspiration from all over.
Yeah.
I don't think we see ourselves as looking at websites to get inspiration, or at least to fuel our thinking. I think I find technology a huge inspiration in the fact that every day you can twist it and break it and bend it to do something else. And I think a lot of the younger generation of designers that are coming into the studios are bringing that with them, and their ability to sort of abuse something to create something new. I really love. I'm too old to do that, but that's why we hire younger designers.
Great briefs create great work.
Yeah.
If the briefs are shit, then it really makes it harder to succeed.
Yeah.
But I think also curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, like a huge dose of curiosity helps just break through and find new things.
Benjamin, how about you guys? You obviously push the envelope as much as anyone. How do you stay on the edge? Like how do you surround yourself? I think
we really like the internet a lot, you know, and we hire people that think that it's the coolest thing ever, and that's actually the whole trick is like everybody's just like, this is awesome all the time, and like
if you haven't got that,
I get paid to make stuff, you know, and put it on the internet and try to make it as popular as possible. So I mean, I don't know, and having like a culture of makers, like I think particularly with the internet, so much of the creativity in any kind of marketing online comes from the process of making the thing that people are going to see, you know, and it's just, I mean, it's like, you're making it on your computer for other people to look at. Like, you're kind of in the environment, and it's not really the same thing with any other. So, like, when you're designing a print ad, you're not, like, designing it on a magazine, you know, but, like, you're designing bits of the internet while you're on the internet, you know, and so it just has to be infused in the entire process. Like, it can't kind of, doesn't work when you print it out and stick it on the wall.
I love that sort of hands-on aspect to it, the sort of the craft part of it, which we already talked about the craft of advertising. I think there's a craft of digital. Is that you're making stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't. And the speed of how you're making it makes it not that precious, which I love as well. You can be a little bit more sort of throwaway and try stuff. And I think that's the exciting part if you're a young designer coming into the industry. It's like you get to try stuff out. And you don't need a big budget, and you don't need a big agency behind you to do it. In fact, you just need you and your computer to do it. I think that's actually what's really interesting.
Blue shirt. One of the things that I find about an agency producer, when trying to bring clients in a digital space, they have to fear that they're creative or they're right message become vulnerable, and whether it's repurposing it on YouTube and making fun of it, or the user-generated video responses or saying along the feed when you allow it to relate to. How do you approach that from the client standpoint, trying to reassure that there are pros and cons to it, but that maybe the pros are really outweighing the cons?
I think it's a great question. You know, the way I always describe it is it's like, you know, you have a child, basically. The brand is your child. And you can sort of like tell it all the right things, and this is how you should live, and I'm going to dress you this way, and you're going to speak this way, but eventually you got to put him out. You know, he's going to leave home, you know, and people are either going to like him or they're not, you know, and so I think that, you know, do everything you can before he leaves home to make sure people like him, and then once he's out there, like, you know, there's going to be people, no matter what, there's going to be people that like him, and there's going to be people that don't. There's going to be people that abuse your brand. There's going to be people that love your brand. And then you sort of need to help navigate the waters of the brand once it's out there, you know. But it's gonna, you know, it is a different world when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, it is. Everybody everybody has their say now, and not everybody's gonna love you, you know.
Has anyone abused the babies yet? I haven't really seen any sort of abuse of the E-Trade babies.
The only one I saw was
off limits to go after the babies, maybe.
Yeah, no, there's been plenty of abuse. But that's another story altogether.
I know you've been abused by Nick, but sorry, Nick, if you're here. But anybody else?
We talk to some of our clients and saying, listen, you need to allow consumers to participate in whatever you're doing. I mean, that's a fundamental part of being working in this medium. But you can't surrender and abdicate responsibility for curating the brand experience. I mean, I think Skittles did it a little while ago, where they just handed the keys over to everybody out there, and it's a category where there's not a lot to talk about. So it descended into racist slander and name calling, all in the period of about a week. And it was scary. Whereas Moderator did it, and they had stuff out there in the ecosystem that you could feed off of, and you could look at. And you're like, okay, there's a brand with a commodity with no information to share, and then there's a brand like Moderator, which has stuff that can stimulate conversation and participation. So I think you got to strike a balance.
Yeah, I reckon I'm going to give a really practical answer to that. I think that there are so many ways we can put tools and we can navigate it when we put content out there and when we pass it over to consumers. And there are so many ways we can help guide the conversation around it, that part of our job when we're talking to our marketing partners, our clients, is to say, and we want to do this because the power of participation will be worth this to you, and here are the things we're going to do to help guide your brand through it. You know, I mean, I can't remember the example because I'm old maybe, but Sony did something where they handed over they basically said to their consumers, create our ads. And then the Sony marketing team sat back and looked at the ads and said, wow, how on brand are they? You know, well, why? Because they've done a good job as marketers, people understand their brand, they understand their message. So I think there's joint responsibility, but I think there are ways we can position it and help our partners understand that it's not as scary and it can be potentially very powerful. And if it goes wrong, we can sort of control it too. We can get in there and guide the conversation. It's a two-way dialogue, which means as much as consumers can take our brand away, we can actually take their conversation away too, in a different direction.
And it's like brands have to do bigger stuff than consumers do on the internet, you know, and like I think that's when it falls into weird territory with like user participation or any user-generated content. It's like the big mistake is like trying to be so down to earth that you've like, it's not actually authentic because you're like a multi-million or billion-dollar brand and like you spend all this money on your marketing and stuff like that. So like don't fake it. Like do something on the internet that only a giant brand with a lot of money can do, and leave the easy, cute stuff to people that are just doing it for fun. You know?
That's another really important thing in creativity, I think, is sort of like the whole authenticity of your message and your voice online. Like, I think I was talking to a marketer of an airline that we have mentioned who was talking about the use of Twitter and how it is both really exciting for them and really frightening. But what they try to be is just really honest and real. And you will only, majority of the time, be rewarded for that, I think.
This unnamed airline, my mother-in-law was coming into town, and I twittered them and said, Grandma's coming on this flight, where is she? And they're like, oh, sorry, Grandma's going to be 20 minutes late.
Exactly.
Within a few minutes.
And that's fantastic.
I couldn't get it at the airport, I couldn't get it on the phone, but I could get it through Twitter.
And you have no option whether to be real. I mean, you have to be real now, and you have to be honest because they're going to find out anyway.
Right.
You know, so
they're going to check you.
I think it's interesting that a lot of the newer brands are really comfortable doing this, and a lot of the older brands are scratching their heads trying to figure out what to do. And I think it's interesting because the tone of the conversations that's happening in those comments below a piece of content online. It's like, is it really worth listening to? Or is a lot of it just vitriol, like bashing because they can, and there's a secret identity that no one knows who they are and they can say whatever they want? Like, if you actually ask them face to face, would they say the same thing? Probably not. So, you know, do you want to drop your brand down to that level, or do you want to elevate your brand above it? I think I go both ways on it. It depends on who the brand is, and it depends on what the conversation is. I think it's.
Sorry, we could just go back to a point that Benjamin made at the beginning. You were talking about your frustration that brands still sort of doing sort of cheap experiment, and where they can finally jump in and start creating very serious online. And there was a woman yesterday from Contagious Message who was saying, not exactly that, but was saying that, you know, there are a lot of things where they're creating much more gorgeous images online, and she quoted the Waterman's as an example, and also the Phillips clown as another example. I mean, is this possibly the beginning of brand starting to do this, or at least just kind of, one-offs, like, doing something reflecting real change?
I think that it's a lot of circumstances on the client side where like digital sort of maturing so that maybe the client that's responsible for buying digital work or allocating the budgets has done like a lot of television, you know, and is like starting to do digital, and that's sort of a new thing. And those are people that are used to like handling, you know, larger production budgets and like, you know, like better produced sort of content, you know? And I think in those situations, like that's a really good way in which like kind of the worlds are sort of merging. And I think I don't know, I mean, the more people like have big successes because of the high production value. Like we did the HBO thing with VBDO, and that was expensive, you know? It's like there's like a lot of footage for the internet. It was like Nomura directed it. It was like really, you know, it was like a really serious production, and we worked on it for like a year, and it just like it was a difficult sell for, you know, to sort of get that. But I think it was because BBDO had done some really high-end stuff for them before, and, you know, I don't know. I think it's getting better, though, with respect to that. Yeah, for sure.
I think budget, I mean, we weren't getting access to the budget before. That's changed, obviously. So now that we're actually getting budget, and also now digital isn't just about matching luggage to a TV spot and a print campaign. It can actually lead the way. So if that's the case, then you get the budget up front, which gives us infinite possibility then, which we never had before. So I think just even that change on the client side, I think, has made a big difference for us. It means that we can lead from the front as opposed to following.
And I think the fact that people are viewing content as content that can be placed anywhere, you know, the big aha. Just because it's broadcast doesn't mean it's television. Because consumers aren't viewing content that way anymore.
Well, and the internet's not actually disposable. Like stuff that you made 5 years ago is still on the internet.
Yeah,
you know,
the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, like it's not just going to run for, you know. So,
doesn't delete it. Just have a wipe,
it's never
clean up.
gone.
Let's take one last one, because I know we're standing between you guys and probably some happy hour.
I have one, and it's sort of been just answered now. But I'm wondering, is the conversation with the client getting any easier in terms of digital being its own monkey, and it's not sort of like print, sort of like TV, but it is its own separate entity? It should be.
It's not separate. That's kind of what we are seeing, and I think I've touched upon it before, is more and more people are coming to us going, digital is got to be at the center of it now.
Yeah.
We have a retail brand that's getting rid of their print budget and putting it into digital. We have a consumer goods brand that's saying, listen, I have more money than I can spend on TV and print, and I'm not achieving what I need to achieve. Let's put digital in the middle of the conversation, but not be exclusively digital. And I think that's a refreshing conversation to have.
I think, just to add to that, I think that marketing partners that I've had conversations with about this, or they've said, what is the future agency? You know, so reverse the conversation and say, is it our clients that are the problem, or is it us? Actually, they're saying brand agencies don't understand how to deploy content and activate it in as many places and as opportunities as we can. And digital agencies, interactive agencies, don't understand how to apply strategy in a way that gives me confidence that, you know, my whole campaign's going to be deployed the right way. So I think that it's not a matter of them understanding the importance of digital. I think it's a matter of them saying, how do I navigate the new universe of how I put my brand idea to market? What are the different models and how do I do it? And what are the agency partners I need? Which is probably the biggest stress on budget deployment, non-working, working dollars, etc.
I think the biggest change I saw was someone like P&G appointing a chief digital officer. I think is a sign of the importance that a brand like that sees how digital is going to play for them going forward. Whenever you're in an agency like ours and you see that, that's fantastic.
I mean, or you even look at the fact that you used to have an interactive director at places like Procter & Gamble and a person who was in charge of relationship marketing. That's all merging. You know, they're connected. So I think it's just ever evolving.
Simon Clift at Unilever went on record as saying this economic crisis we're in is a distraction for the real crisis that he's in or he's experiencing, which is the wholesale destruction of the media universe and the reassembling in a completely different way. And how do they anticipate and adapt to this new life? So when money comes back, it's going to be a different place.
Yep.
Fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you, everybody.